Hello, and welcome to another segment of Mineral Minutes. My name is Brock Ortner, Extension Educator based out of the Northern Panhandle. In today's segment, we'll be discussing cobalt and iodine supplementation and how they're both generally deficient in forages, but very economical to feed. Because they're important and relatively cheap to supplement, we'll discuss some of the considerations that we need to make as we look to include these in our free choice mineral. Starting with cobalt, cobalt is required by all classes of cattle at 0.15 parts per million in the total diet. In a 4-ounce free choice mineral, this would be 20 parts per million. It's commonly supplemented as either the inorganic form sulfate or carbonate, which are both really cost effective to supplement. And as a general rule of thumb, legumes have a greater concentration of cobalt than grasses do. So supplementation is very cost effective and recommended in most cases. However, because it's such a small component of the diet, some mineral mixes may not include cobalt, so it's important to read our feed tag to ensure that we are, in fact, supplementing cobalt to our cows. As we think about cobalt deficiency, it's a lot more likely than cobalt toxicity. In the total dietary basis, diets have been fed up to 25 parts per million without causing any decreases in cattle performance. Recalling that the cow requirement in the total diet is 0.15 parts per million, we can feed several times this, up to 25 parts per million without seeing that decrease in performance. However, we need to recall that supplementing above the cow requirement does not result in any increased performance in most cases, and thus it's only an added cost to the operation. Cobalt deficiency would appear as slight decreases in weight gain or even weight loss in the cow herd, depending on the severity and duration of the cobalt deficiency. And this is mainly driven by its importance for propionate metabolism. When we feed cobalt, it's used by rumen microbes to synthesize vitamin B12, which plays an integral role in propionate metabolism and thus contributes to the growth and overall energy metabolism of the cow. Switching gears to iodine supplementation, cows require iodine at 0.5 parts per million in the total diet. In a 4-ounce free choice mineral, this would be 65 parts per million. Similar to cobalt, there's a lot of crossover supplementation wise where a lot of the same considerations should be made in terms of their maximum tolerable threshold. We can feed a lot more iodine than the requirement. And similar to cobalt, we want to make sure that what we're doing is cost effective to the operation. Most products will include iodine as either calcium iodate or EDDI, which is an organic form of iodine. And both of these are relatively cost effective and highly stable and highly available to the animal. Some other forms of iodine have a shorter shelf life, so by using these products, we can ensure that when we get around to feeding our free choice mineral, if it's been on the pallet for extended period of time, we can ensure that these cattle are going to be meeting their iodine requirements. As a rule of thumb, forages also contain relatively low iodine that does not meet the cow requirement. And iodine can also be affected by plants that contribute nutritional factors known as goitrogens, such as white clover, brassicas, and soybean meal that decrease iodine uptake by the thyroid gland. These can increase iodine requirements, sometimes 2 to 4 times the requirement. So in these cases, if we're going to be feeding a cover crop mix with a high proportion of brassicas or diets with a large amount of white clover or soybean meal, it may be a good idea to consult your local veterinarian or nutritionist to make sure that if we do increase the iodine in our free choice mineral, that we're doing it so that it meets the iodine requirement and offsets the goitrogens present in the diet. Carrying on with this interaction between iodine and the thyroid gland, a lot of the iodine uptaken from the diet is used for the secretion of T3 and T4 thyroid hormones, which are important for overall animal growth. The first sign of iodine deficiency that we would likely see in our cow herd is goiter in calves, which would be present as enlarged thyroid gland on the side of the neck of our calves. In more severe cases, this could result in hairless, weak, or even dead calves. In terms of the cow, iodine deficiency has a large impact on reproductive outcomes, such as irregular cycling, low conception rates, and even retained placenta in females, and can also affect the bull in terms of decreased libido and semen quality. So when we think about feeding iodine deficient diets, if we're not supplementing or have high goitrogens present in the diet that we're not accounting for. It may take a long time before these signs of deficiency are present, so it's important that we're supplying iodine to meet the cow's requirements and prevent any of these signs of marginal deficiency.